It is Thursday, April 3rd. It is an off day for the Chicago White Sox, but we are going to talk about yesterday's 6-1 loss at the hands of the Minnesota Twins and then briefly look ahead to the series starting tomorrow against the Detroit Tigers. Welcome to Believe in White Sox. I'm Greg Mirage, your host. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube page and also subscribe on Apple Pods, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure that you are joining us on those platforms. So the White Sox lose the series finale yesterday, 6-1 to the Minnesota Twins, and it just did not feel like it was a game that was set up for success. And one of the big issues over the last two games for the White Sox has been allowing runs to score with two out. All five runs that scored in that disastrous sixth inning on Tuesday night came with two out. It ended up being the case yesterday as well because two out in the first inning, Byron Buxton hits yet another home run against the White Sox, the 22nd career homer that he has put up against the Pale Hose, which is the most that he's hit against any team. It was a two-out solo shot, but still, it stings nonetheless. And for Sean Burke, the first run that he's allowed this year, the first run that White Sox starting pitching has allowed in the first inning this year, and it's really funny because in each of the first five games, runners reached base against Sox starters in the first inning, and they didn't allow a run. They got out of the jam every single time. There has not been a 1-2-3 top of the first inning so far this year for the White Sox. But Burke retires the first two batters that he faces in the first inning, and then Byron Buxton ends up hitting that solo shot out to deep left center field. And then in the fourth inning, Harrison Bader hit what was a back-breaking home run on because the deficit on Tuesday night was manageable until Bader hit the home run in the ninth inning, and he hits a three-run homer off of Burke with two on and two out in the fourth inning to put the Twins up 4-0. At that point, it just felt like it was inevitable. Pablo Lopez was vintage Pablo Lopez. 7 innings of one-run baseball, 4 hits allowed. The only run that he allowed was a solo homer to Brooks Baldwin, which came in the 7th inning when Lopez was close to the end of his rope. White Sox managed just 6 hits in the ballgame. And look, the issues that I have with where this White Sox team is at this point is that in their 4 losses, see if I can do math in my head real quick. In their 4 losses, the White Sox have scored a combined 6 runs. A shutout against the Angels on Saturday, 2 runs in a loss to the Angels on Sunday, 3 runs in their loss Tuesday night, and then 1 run yesterday. In the White Sox 2 wins, they've scored a combined 17 runs, 8 on opening day and 9 against the Twins on Monday. This offense is feast or famine, it seems, at this point. And it was an interesting lineup that Will Venable put out yesterday, and really not an effective one. Nick Maton in the leadoff spot again, but this time playing first base, giving Andrew Vaughn, I'm not going to say a much-needed day off because I'm not going to claim that Andrew Vaughn needs a day off, but Andrew Vaughn certainly has gotten off to a really poor start to the year. Other than his 3-run homer on Monday, he hasn't recorded a hit yet. Or at least that's what I believe to be the case. We will verify with Baseball Reference. But the fact of the matter is it looks like Nick Maton is going to end up being the guy that at least gets the first cracks at playing first base when Andrew Vaughn is not in the lineup. And I was mistaken. Vaughn did have a hit in the game I went to on Tuesday night. So on the season, Andrew Vaughn is actually had a hit on Sunday. So he actually has a 3-game hitting streak because he had a hit in each of the last 3 games. But overall, he's 3 for 19 on the season. It's been a really rough start for, and I was thinking about this yesterday as I was walking home from the grocery store. And I always have ruminations when I'm either in the shower or walking home from the store or walking anywhere. Like there'll be certain points, like I guarantee you, I'm going to get on the golf course later this evening, and I guarantee you I'm going to have a thought about the White Sox then. But my thought about Andrew Vaughn as I was walking home from the grocery store was simply this. Did the White Sox not trade him because they still found value in him being a future piece of what this team could be? Or did the White Sox not trade him because they realized that he has absolutely no value on the trade market? Andrew Vaughn is, compared to most first basemen out there, relatively cheap. And if you look at Andrew Vaughn's career and you see what he can be when he's at his best, if you look at his stats, you make the argument that 2023 was the best year that he's had. 21 homers, 80 runs batted in. He hit 258 with a 314 on base percentage. In 2024, 246, 19 homers, 70 runs batted in. 2022, 271, 17 homers, 76 runs batted in. And his rookie season in 2021, he only hit 235, 15 homers, 48 driven in. So what's the expectation of Andrew Vaughn? He's going to hit in the range of 240 to 260, hit between 15 and 20 homers, and drive in between 70 and 80 runs. Is that somebody that you're going to get a lot for on the trade market? The answer is quite simply no. And depending upon where the White Sox are in their competitive life cycle, at least this year, like we may have delusions of grandeur about if this White Sox team is competitive or not, but I would have to imagine that if Andrew Vaughn is on a team at the end of July that has no chance of making the playoffs, and even with, granted, a 2-4 start is tied for first in the division. Everybody in the AL Central right now is 2-4, which is insane to me, but that's where we're at. Andrew Vaughn, you have to trade for anything you can get if you do end up in a position to where you're not going to make the playoffs in 2025, which is more than likely the case. I may be fooled and he gets hot in the next week or so, but it's been a very poor start to the year for Andrew Vaughn. So I understand completely why Will Venable sat him on the bench yesterday. Matt Theis got the start at catcher as I expected he would, because he was playing in a day game after a night game, even though he came in relief of Corey Lee on Tuesday in a pinch hitting role. So I still think that you need to see Corey Lee get the majority of the at-bats. And again, like if you're talking about what's important for you to see right now with these White Sox, if you feel like Matt Theis is the catcher that is going to best give you the opportunity to win games now, then fine. But if this team is out of it by middle of June, there's no reason why Matt Theis should be taking meaningful at bats. But then the question becomes, if you bring Kyle Teal up, is he the guy that catches every day? And if he catches every day, then what does that mean for Corey Lee? And is there even a purpose at this point of having Corey Lee on the roster? I'm of the thought that if Kyle Teal can play first base, maybe he's the guy that you can DH and play at first base and still continue to have Corey Lee be the catcher. I think there's a lot of things that you can do with this lineup that, given where you might be at certain points of the year, you could certainly say that, all right, Kyle Teal's going to play every day, but he's not necessarily going to play the same position every day. And maybe Matt Theis ends up in a position to where a competitive team needs a backup catcher and you get something for him. It's too early in this process to realistically be thinking about what the White Sox should be doing in the trade market, but it's interesting to look in terms of where they're at this point in the year and who you find the most value in at this point. Brooks Baldwin to me is somebody that needs to be playing every day. And I said that on Tuesday night, I'll say it again. Whether it be third base, second base, shortstop, I'm not impressed in the little sample size that I've seen him in the outfield, but I think that Brooks Baldwin is certainly somebody that, I mean, you just look at the way he's gotten off to this season, and he's swinging a good bat. He's getting the ball in play. He's getting the ball out of the ballpark. There's no reason to me why he should not be in the lineup every day. Now, the question is he going to be the guy that, all right, if Miguel Vargas gets a day off at third, does he play third base? If Jacob Amaya gets a day off at short, does he play shortstop? If, you know, is he going to end up being the starting second baseman at times? It's hard to say. Like, I don't know what the right course of action in terms of, what Brooks Baldwin's set position should be. But I don't, I'm not necessarily confident in some of these guys as your everyday starters. Like Lenyn Sosa right now looks like he's the everyday second baseman, and the White Sox are going to finally give him the opportunity to effectively sink or swim. And that's going to be the case as well with Miguel Vargas at third. I had thought that we would see more Miguel Vargas in the outfield, but there's enough guys that can play the outfield at this point, at least on the current roster, to where Vargas is probably going to end up being at third base or DHing. In terms of the outfield pieces, Michael A. Taylor got the start yesterday, even though it was against a right-handed pitcher. He went 0 for 3. Travis Jankowski got his first start. He started in center field as Luis Robert DH'd. He went 1 for 3. There's nothing special about Travis Jankowski. Andrew Benintendi got another hit. He did strike out twice, but again, he's been your best hitter to start the year. And is finally, at least in a weak sample size, looking like the guy that you paid 5 years and $75 million to. Now, Andrew Benintendi, he may play himself into being a candidate that is able to be traded. But with 2 more years left on his contract after this year, the White Sox may not end up getting a lot in return if you do end up trading him at some point, because the return on taking on 2 years of salary is going to be minimal from a prospect value. But again, the White Sox have one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, so I don't see why eating any of his salary in order to get a higher ranked prospect back would be that much of an issue. But the White Sox, yesterday was just weird. It was a non-competitive game. It felt weird. Everything around yesterday felt strange. I was sitting here in my apartment working, and it was storming. Like, it was thunderstorms all morning. I didn't think that they were going to get the game in, but they started the game in the delay. Tarp was on the field, and they started at 4:40 Central Time. First pitch was scheduled for 1:10. And you know what? If it meant waiting that long to make sure that you didn't burn one of your starting pitchers, then I am totally fine with that. Like, I've got no issue in that regard. So there are certain things that you have to look at what's the best decision for how your rotation sets up for the type of off days that you get. And playing yesterday's game was great, even though the White Sox were non-competitive in the game. Sean Burke got hit on a comebacker off of his knee. He says he's just going to be sore. Will Venable says it's nothing to worry about. I hope that's the case. Now, I talk about off days. You get an off day today, and you get an off day on Monday. because the Guardians are also going to be having their home opening series starting Tuesday. So you get 3 day games in Detroit, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, off day, and then a day game in Cleveland. And we are hoping, by the way, to have somebody on to preview the White Sox and the Guardians series and more details on that should that end up coming up to fruition. So, rotational setup for the Tigers series: Cannon on Friday, followed by Davis Martin Saturday, and Martin Perez will wrap up on Sunday. And then it'll be Shane Smith. I'm going to keep calling him Sean Smith throughout the course of the year. Please prevent me from doing that. But it'll be Shane Smith that'll get the start against the Guardians. And the White Sox, by the way, they're going to end up playing 4 straight day games. Now, 3:10 on Tuesday is a sort of day game. Like, it'll go into the early evening. But the White Sox are only going to have one night game in their upcoming road trip. And that'll be Wednesday night against the Guardians at 5:10 Central, 6:10 Eastern. By the way, starting games at 6:10 local time, I am all for that. I am all for that. So good on you, Guardians, to do that. But then when the White Sox come home on the next homestand, it'll be a night game and 2 day games. Although the game on April 12th against the Red Sox, that's going to be a 3:10 Central start. And then when you got the A's coming up, it'll be back-to-back night games followed by a day game. So you're not going to play a Monday game again until the 21st. So you're going to have an off day each of the next 2 Mondays. So it gives you time to tinker with your rotation, figure out how you construct your bullpen, and it's going to give you some off days at the right time of the year. And this White Sox team is going to be tested, though, in terms of going on the road for a long period of time. They've got a 3-series road trip starting on the 18th. They'll go to Boston for 4, Minnesota for 3, and then they'll go to Sacramento for 3. So you've got a 10-game road trip that will follow up a 3-game or 6-game homestand. And to me, I think that where this team is at in terms of their life cycle, all you can hope for is to just stay competitive, but the offense needs to be better. It just, simply put, needs to be better than what it has been. But can you expect this team to have a better offense knowing who's on this roster and what the roles are assigned for certain guys that are a part of this roster? If your expectations are not high, I don't think execution will be high either. So the White Sox will head to Detroit to take on the Tigers, who are going to be playing their first home games of the season. And the Tigers, they start off the year on a West Coast road trip where they get swept by the Dodgers in a controversial play at home plate where it looked like, I cannot remember who it was for the Tigers, it looked like they were safe at home, but replay called them out. And again, the Dodgers have not lost a game this year, so it's totally understandable at this point why you get swept out in LA and you realize that that's the best team in baseball, and we can't necessarily be that angry at that. But they end up winning 2 of 3 games from the Seattle Mariners in their next series. So everybody in the American League Central at this point is 2-4. And who is the best team? Like, I don't know if you can take these divisional games and say who is or who isn't the best team in the Central. I can tell you who the best team isn't. It's not the Minnesota Twins, and it's not the Chicago White Sox. So it's either the Tigers, the Guardians, or the Royals. The Royals have had instances where they've looked like a really good team. They've had instances where they, got bamboozled at times. I don't think that's the word that I was necessarily using. But if you want to talk about what the Tigers have done at this point, Gleyber Torres has played in 2 games. He's got a home run, 3 hits. Kind of weird to see him out of a Yankee uniform. Spencer Torkelson has, after a lot of people were wondering what the heck his future was going to be, he has gotten off to a really, really good start. 7 for 27 so far with a home run and 2 runs batted in. Riley Green with 2 homers and 3 RBI at this point. If you look at where the Tigers are overall from a team stats perspective, they're hitting 265 as a team so far with a 336 on base percentage. The biggest issue so far for them has been their pitching. They got a 5.08 team ERA at this point. They will fortunately miss Tarek Skubal in this turn through the rotation, although Skubal has not gone off to a great start. He's allowed 3 homers in 10 and 2/3 innings of work. So there is an argument to be made that maybe you would want to face him. And the White Sox, certainly their best offensive output was against a left-handed starter on opening day against Yusei Kikuchi. So maybe the White Sox are disappointed that they are not going to end up seeing a left-handed starter. But they do end up having to draw Jack Flaherty, who at his best is one of the best starters in baseball, assuming when he's healthy. Casey Mize had a great season debut. They'll see him on Saturday. 5 2/3 innings of no runs. And then Reese Olson on Sunday, who gave up 4 runs, 3 walks in 4 2/3 innings. He is a 25-year-old, so be curious to see how the White Sox perform against him. But it's really too early to overanalyze a lot of what's going on in terms of these teams, but maybe we'll get a truer sense of who both of these clubs are in this series. I mean, if the White Sox leave Detroit with a record of 5-4, I would be pleasantly surprised. If they leave Detroit with a record of 4-5, that I think is acceptable. If you win 2 out of 3 games, I think that you've called that a success. And again, if you have a whole division start 2-4, it's a small sample size, but it also goes to show that there's no elite team in the division, and as long as you stay competitive, you're going to have a chance at the end. And maybe one team in the first month puts themselves in front of everybody else as the best team in the division, but until we actually see that, it's really anybody's mantle to take. And I don't think the White Sox will grab the mantle, but they will most certainly, if they play well, let other teams know that this division isn't going to be run by one team. This division is going to be a series of teams playing great and playing poorly, different stretches in the year, and how we evaluate the strength of this division may not necessarily be in games between division opponents. It could very well end up being who plays the best outside the division. Because right now, there is no division in the American League that is as weak as the American League Central. But in any event, I got to work late on Friday, so we are not going to have a post-game pod on Friday. If we do, it will be early Saturday morning. More than likely, we'll do a morning after reacts on Saturday morning. Maybe potentially double that up and do a twofer on Sunday morning. But no show Friday. We will have a show either Saturday or Sunday. White Sox will be in Detroit for their first matchup of the year against the Tigers. Thanks, everybody.